Hello and welcome to the 5th episode of Thrive, your source for expert advice and insights on mental health and well-being. My name is Curtis and today we're joined by Tabitha Veness, one of our clinical managers here at Converge. Hi Tabitha, how are you going?
Oh, good, thanks Curtis. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
So I've worked in the mental health industry for the last 15 years. A lot of my work is centred around family and domestic violence and trauma. A lot of, childhood trauma, working with adults who've experienced that as well. And I'm a counsellor.
Brilliant, awesome. So this is actually our holiday special episode. So, being December, it's actually a time now we're going to actually talk a little bit about Christmas.
Yeah.
But we're going to look at all aspects of Christmas, obviously, the challenging, but also the great things and the positives as well. So my first question is, while it can be a happy time for many, it can also be a significantly challenging time for others. So what are some issues you see around this time of year?
That's a really good question because, it's couched around a time of the year. People experience things throughout the year, but Christmas can exacerbate stuff that is already there. Yeah. So a lot of the times, because of what's associated with Christmas, such as the financial issues that can occur, there's always there can be that pressure to buy presents, to engage in social outings. People tend to or may overindulge during this time. And so we see a lot of mood disorders increase during this time. So people may experience an incredible amount of stress, anxiety and depression.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because I suppose as well when you look at the financial thing, it's a lot of people, they obviously wait for birthdays and Christmas to get those big, extravagant, expensive presents. And obviously that can be quite hard in the hip pocket, yeah.
Yeah, it can be.
Definitely.
And that's probably one of the bigger things and probably looming particularly now, particularly with the cost of living crisis. So people will be feeling that possibly more so this year than other years, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So mine say that Christmas can add extra pressure and stress. So obviously we've touched on financial pressures, but why else do you think that this can really exacerbate people's already tested mental well-being?
Well, it's an unusual situation that people find themselves in. Christmas can be a day where they're speaking to family they may not normally speak to. So they are then forced into, or feel that they're forced into a situation where they may be with people that they experience an incredible amount of conflict with, or who they've had been in. Some people will be sitting across the table from people who have abused them.
Okay, yeah.
And that in itself can be incredibly anxiety provoking. What we also notice is that, of course, people engage in... Sorry, Curtis, I'm going to ask you to go back to the question again. I've just lost my train.
That's all fine. That's all good. So, we're just sort of looking at how this time and this pressure and this stress can really exacerbate people's mental well-being, make it worse. Obviously, talks about the financial, the family aspect as well, and seeing people you wouldn't regularly see.
There's probably 4 things. So one of the things is, of course, there's time pressure. So you've got an environmental pressures. So there's going to shopping centres, which are quite busy.
Yeah.
Organising and doing your usual routine, but in amongst that you've got social events. So there might be workplace events, school events, family, friend occasions.
Yeah.
Then you've also got, of course, we talked about before, financial. So there's not just buying gifts, but also putting on the big spread for Christmas Day. There's also the element of, the simple things like buying raffle tickets for school.
Yeah.
There's also, at this time of year, those bills you start to recognise as other bills that are going to come in, such as school fees, new uniforms for kids starting school, or if kids have grown out of their uniforms, that kind of thing as well.
It's really close, isn't it, afterwards? Obviously they go back at the end of Jan, so it's...
They do. So you have that in your mind while also thinking of, putting on that, making Christmas special, what is special Christmas time? There's Santa Claus, and we tend to go out more, and in Australia it's summer. So, of course, social activity is quite big around this time of year as well. Then you've got your relationship pressures. So what can be a difficult relationship can become even more difficult. Or because of the other pressures that you're experiencing, you can experience difficulties in the relationship or challenges in the relationship, conflict in the relationship, where they may not normally because of these additional stresses and pressures that are going on. And then, of course, there's emotional triggers. So Christmas is something we celebrate every year. And for some of us, we have incredibly happy memories of those times where there's incredible connection with family members. There's memories of, unwrapping Christmas under the, Christmas presents under the Christmas tree. And then there's, the memories that can be about where you've lost someone in your life, or where you might have had a really incredibly traumatic experience around that time of year. So people will be thinking of those things because there's an anniversary attached to that, or an association attached to that as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't get easier, really, does it? It's such a tough one.
No, because it becomes, because it's, it's the trigger. It's like, you walk past a bakery, and when you smell the smells of the bakery, you go, wow, that bread, that's really nice. And, your stomach's already kind of churning. You're thinking, well, I'd really love, a really nice slice of that bread or something like that. Well, it's the same in terms of how we associate events and memories together. They come paired, and the feelings that we felt at that time can rise up again. And that can be determined, like how we manage that, or the supports we have at the time can determine whether or not we're able to cope with those feelings that come up and those memories that come up as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think you also touched on a really interesting point before with the social events sort of thing. It is so rife with big social events, big parties. Speaking from experience as a person with social anxiety, what sort of tips do you have for helping people navigate those situations where they might feel, socially anxious during these times, or not wanting to participate, but at the same time really wanting to participate? It's a very double-edged sword, very tricky.
It really is, isn't it? Because as human beings, we desire connection. And connection helps us thrive when we have supports in our lives, where things are going really hard for ourselves. We can reach out to those people, but also we can create incredibly happy memories with people as well. It makes us feel good to feel loved, liked, and to have connections in our lives. The problem is, of course, when we're talking about a social event, that's not necessarily with, our little group of people that we normally, hang out with, right?
Yeah.
So a social event, can come with all kinds of things. When people talk about these things, we'll talk about that anxiety around social anxiety and things like that. A lot of the ways that people do it is they can make it into a big thing. You notice that it's more the thinking about the event than the actual event.
Yes, yeah.
So when you think about the event, the anxiety increases, the fear increases, and the worry increases. And we find that our behaviour then is guided by those thoughts. So when we arrive at an event, we're already prepared for a disaster, right? Yeah, already there. However, some of the things that can support people in managing that social anxiety is to recognise, I can say yes or no. So first of all, you've got a choice.
Yeah.
You can opt out, and it should be an opt out for people. Particularly, you've got work functions, you've got, other social events that occur, schools, things like that.
Can be exhausting as well, can't it?
It can be.
Yeah.
So pick and choose. Who are the people that I enjoy hanging out with? Where do I feel that there's not a lot of pressure on me to perform or be anything in that space? What are the things that are going to be easy for me to turn up to, perhaps, than things that are going to be, hard stress and pressure? Having said that, you can also challenge yourself and actually say, well, what do I have to be in these places? I don't have to be anything. I just have to be myself. I can be myself in those spaces. And what am I here for? You know, I'm not here to perform. I'm not here to be larger than life. I don't have to entertain anyone. I can just, you know, eat, have a drink and a laugh with a few people. You know, who are the people that I gravitate to in these social functions? Go to them.
Yeah,
you know, you don't have to be everything for everyone.
I know,
You know, and you can enjoy yourself.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely. Yeah, and I know that's going to be really helpful for listeners, but that's also very helpful for me. So yeah, thank you, Tabitha. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I suppose looking at the family aspect again, so some people may not have family or friends, and so Christmas can be incredibly isolating. So similarly, this could be the first Christmas after losing a loved one, obviously, that we've touched on before. So what can people do to support themselves and shield their mental well-being when happiness is like really forced upon them?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So there can be that sense of you have to be happy around Christmas time. And Christmas is traditionally about connecting with family and friends. There can be that social aspect of it. There can also be that, I guess, that material aspect of it as well, that pressure too. So you've got those two things going, but the real thing here when you're talking about family and friends, and that is that social connection. For some people, and one of the things that we probably haven't touched on is that actually Christmas is a celebration. It's for religious purposes of the birth of Christ.
Yeah.
So for those people who may not have family and friends, who may have lost a loved one, but see Christmas as a very deep foundation in terms of their religion, it can have depth and meaning to them, and it can enable them to create connection through perhaps the church.
Yeah.
If that's where their depth and meaning around Christmas lies. So when we're connected to social supports, we can thrive. It's then really up to those support systems to respond appropriately and not force that on that person. They might not want to put the Christmas tree up. You know, they might not want to go out to dinner or anything like that. They may want time for quiet contemplation or to sit with their grief. You know, to give permission to self and allow and have other people give permission to them to grieve is really, really important.
Yeah.
Because we don't all have to be happy and wonderful all the time. We can't. It's not sustainable. Let's be real. Another thing is to recognise that they can opt in and out as well. To opt in and out.
Partake in certain things and not in others.
Absolutely. Self-care is really essential for this time. I'm speaking specifically when it comes to grief and loss. So it's, eat well.
Yeah.
Try to avoid drugs and alcohol, or minimise it. Sleep, get sleep where you can. And movement, activity, exercise. That also supports our well-being. And connection when needed, It can also help them to come up with something to remind themselves or remember their loved one. And some people create little altars or just have a photo, light a candle, that kind of thing. For some people, they actually want to be involved in Christmas. They find that they find the purpose and meaning through continuing their life as is when they've lost someone. And so it's important for other people to think, well, to not judge, to not judge that. If they want to be involved in Christmas and they want to be involved in the hype and the happiness and whatever it is that they love about Christmas, let them. They're serving their grief, their person, their loved one that way by continuing to opt in to things.
Yeah.
And it also provides a meaningful distraction at times, where they might be lonely by themselves. They're hopping in and being part of. It's just for other people in the room to be sensitive to the fact that they might be a bit up and down. There might be a moment where they cry. How do they want to remember this loved one? Do they want to have the empty chair sitting at the table Christmas? That can be a beautiful way of remembering that person as well.
Definitely.
There's for some people, and probably one thing that we don't really consider enough is that people who've migrated from overseas.
I'm one of them, yep.
There you go.
I just have my mum, dad and my brother, and that's it. Yeah.
So there's that limited family, and sometimes when you migrate, you might have family, one person living in Queensland, one person in Western Australia. Australia's a big country. People have commitments during that time. Some people may be working through, and so they can't join family. So one is about, how can you celebrate with people who are a distance from you, meaningfully. And we did certainly learn a lot of that when we did COVID lockdowns, where we couldn't, and when we couldn't travel, through Zoom meetings, Teams meetings, FaceTime.
Yeah, the technology was very powerful back then,
Yeah, and it's still here. So to remember that, you can be sitting down at the table having, whatever it is that you guys have decided together to eat, a favourite food or something like that, and having a meal while, you've got them planted on the table with your video.
The people can still feel involved,
Yeah. It doesn't have to be big or amazing or anything. There's still connection. You're still talking to someone and eating a meal with someone. For those who have lost connection, that can be through violence and abuse, where they have made a decision that it's safer for them to stay away from family and friends. We do need to be sensitive to that. They might create their Christmas the way they want it. That can really support them that way, to do a Christmas for them, whether it's to read a book or watch a movie, or other people align with just groups. There might be a whole heap of friends that know one another, don't have big families, and so they get together. Another thing is to volunteer. There are a lot of charities out there that do Christmas lunches. And so people become part of the Christmas spirit as such through serving others. And we do find that when you, for people's mental health and well-being, this can actually be a really good thing to involve yourself in, that volunteer and to serve others and give.
Definitely. There's so many good points there, definitely. I suppose as well, because you sort of touched on it, as in terms of religion. So obviously for a lot of people, they don't celebrate Christmas, but in a very westernised society, it's very sort of thrusted upon us. Every shopping centre is decked out with Christmas trees and fake presents and stuff, and every shop window is, and they just make such a big grand spectacle of Christmas. Whereas for them, it's not a thing. It's not part of what they believe. Which I suppose that can be incredibly isolating too. Would you agree?
Well, it can be. Absolutely, it can be, because then your culture, your world is not seen, because you're being asked to assimilate into a dominant culture. I guess the thing is there can be that feeling for some people. It's feeling of, I don't choose this, I don't want this. This is not my world. This doesn't align with my beliefs, practices, culture, who I am in this world. Or some people actually do go, you know what, I'll be part of it. I'll be part of it. I think this is where workplaces can play a little bit of a role here. And that's, an all year thing, so not just for Christmas, where we're recognising other people's cultures, their celebrations. I know Diwali's,
and there's Hanukkah as well at the same time.
Well, Diwali is sort of the October-November period. That's a very big celebration. There's Bodhi, where Buddhists celebrate the day that the Buddha came to enlightenment. That's, I think, the 8th of December. Please correct me if I'm wrong there, if you can. Hanukkah, you're right. So Hanukkah that's the 26th of December until the 1st of January, I believe. There's Kawazar, which is celebration also of African culture as well, that goes from the 26th of December to the 1st of January. So
lots going on.
There is a lot going on.
But we do just focus on that one, so it can be a bit of like. Do you think it's also like a bit of a strict identity as well, that like you feel like you have to conform and assimilate, whereas that's not part of your identity?
Yeah, you can. To be accepted, we do. People can, I guess, strip away sort of parts of themselves, or dive into what other people, are celebrating and conforming to it. So, for example, you may be someone who is Muslim. You all come from a different country, or you don't even celebrate Christmas at all. It's very, secular. What you might, the workplace might say, hey everyone, we're going to do Kris Kringle. And so, that becomes a very different situation as well. It's not just about celebrating Christmas with other people, but also in a workplace. If you're not seen to be a team player, that can have an impact on how then your manager sees you as performing. So then you're in a situation where, okay, I have to be part of Kris Kringle, but this doesn't align with me. So it's you're compromising beliefs and values around this. So for workplaces, their role can be to say, look, we're offering Kris Kringle. You don't have to be a part of it. This is not part of your performance or anything like that. But for those who celebrate or want to be a part of it, you're welcome to join. For those who don't, that's okay. And that much like anything, workplace Christmas parties, for some people, where their beliefs are that they don't want to be around alcohol or near alcohol, workplace Christmas parties often have alcohol there.
Yeah.
So
I suppose that can also be true as well for people who are sober or have gone through alcohol and substance abuse issues and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So, then it's really a matter of the workplace sitting down and going, well, how can we do this? Do we call this a Christmas party? Do we call this an end of year celebration? Because let's face it, a lot of places do shut down at the end of the year. Yeah. We are working towards is it Roman calendar?
I think so.
Yeah. The third, so to the 1st of January for the next year. So it can be changed, or it can be acknowledged that this is part of Christmas celebrations. But we recognise that perhaps maybe alcohol doesn't need to be a part of it, because you're right, you might have recovering alcoholics in the mix, and that can be really difficult to kind of manage that. There's for example, when you talk about social anxiety. Some people may use alcohol to manage that anxiety, but for those people who are recovering alcoholics, they don't want to do that. So, do you take that off the table and say, hey, we're going to do mocktails? Yeah. And they're just as cool and groovy and exciting and all the rest as, any alcoholic beverage.
It sort of promotes that inclusivity side as well, doesn't it? Yeah.
It really does. It really does. Recognises, collectively, let's be real, we live in a multicultural society. We can celebrate other people's celebrations with them, or recognise them at the very least, and they can choose or not whether or not they want to opt into the more dominant celebrations.
Yeah, definitely. So we're running out of time, so I've got a couple extra questions.
Okay.
So I suppose a Salvation Army 2021 study found that 83% of Australia's hardest hit struggle to afford Christmas presents, and obviously it's a holiday that's so wrapped up in materialism. Can this have adverse effects on mental well-being? And obviously we talked on this a little bit before, especially during the cost of living crisis.
Yeah, so financial stress has an impact on mental well-being. If you cannot afford your basic essentials, absolutely 100%. So people are at the moment making decisions to keep a roof over their heads and not feeding themselves or not eating as much. This is where it's really important to reach out for supports. So places like the Salvation Army and places like that, to get your food parcels, that kind of thing, so that you're still eating. Opt in for those Christmas lunches that they have for the community. Do those kinds of things as well. Reach out to places like Lifeline, Beyond Blue, EAP provider. Talk to someone, get some financial support and assistance. Talk to a financial counsellor if needed. And recognise that a lot of this stuff is out of your control. A lot of this is based on policy decisions, inflation, global issues that are going on in the world. So this is not about you, it's just you're having to manage something that can be out of your control at times. Find the places where you can control certain aspects. Where can I find elements of control here? Okay, so I'll buy an apple instead of a chocolate bar. So I'm still eating healthy. That kind of thing. And I know that's very simple, a simplified version, but because it's more complex than that.
It is, definitely. And I suppose it's obviously many of our clientele is in the retail space, so I think it would be a disservice not to talk a little bit about the retail space. Obviously, they are going to absolutely get smashed in the next 2 months, and not everyone's very nice, unfortunately. So obviously, what would you sort of say for them to look after their mental well-being, as well as what people should be sort of doing to help them too, because obviously when you go to your local Coles to go get your groceries for Christmas, it can be manic for everyone. You know, how can we sort of help the situation, I guess?
Yeah, so I used to work in the retail sector, so I do really truly understand the pressures that people experience during that time. Probably one of the really difficult things, there's been a lot of stuff in the news around cost of living, and food has been a particular topic. This is not, you know, they're not making these decisions. You know, a lot of this is around suppliers and their costs and things like that. So, you know, the broader community probably needs to recognise that the people that are working on the floor serving them, they're not making these decisions. They're not part of the problem. They also need jobs like everyone else. They need to put food on their table. They need to keep a roof over their head and earn money as well. So they're just there to provide a particular service. So being kind and compassionate. Maybe don't go shopping when you're feeling angry too, or frustrated as well. Make sure you're in a good place yourself, you know, and that helps, you know, prior planning, organised, you know, make sure you're organised, stick to your budgets, that kind of thing as well.
Getting bits here and there as you're going through,
Absolutely, that's the perfect thing. And a lot of the reason why a lot of the retailers put out Christmas a lot sooner than we think we're going, hang on, it's Christmas already, is it actually enables people to budget. They do buy that one or two thing, you know, over time, which actually helps. Shop at times where there's not going to be a lot of people around if you can. We do have really longer opening times, so we've got that advantage these days.
Charleston's open 24 hours nowadays, so
I know, right? So if you've got those 24-hour shopping centre moments, absolutely go in there. You know, it might be early in the morning or late at night, you know, and go in. Don't leave it all to the last minute where you can be stressed as well for yourself. And for retail workers, you know, they may take on extra shifts themselves and, you know, earn a bit of extra cash and stuff like that this time of year. So it's really comes down to basic stuff, you know, eat well, sleep well, exercise, connect with social supports, reach out for professional support if needed. And try and just kind of minimise, at the very least, you know, any kind of drug and alcohol that you might take as well.
Definitely. So my final question, because obviously we've talked a lot about the challenges, so inversely, let's talk about the positives. So is there any positives to Christmas on our mental well-being, and can it help us in a way in this situation?
Christmas can be, and it's how you approach it, how you organise yourself around it. So Christmas can be this beautiful time where you have a day, let's face it, it's a public holiday. You don't go, some people go to work, of course, in our health industry. They definitely continue, and certainly our police as well. And truly, you know, as a community, we can be grateful to those people who are still keeping things running. For those who get to have the day off, it's a day where you can connect. Now, whether you connect with others or yourself, it's up to you. So you can make it a day that is just for you, where you do things that you love or you want to do, or you can connect with people, and you can minimise the time that you are with people that you don't enjoy, and really maximise the time with the people that you do enjoy. You know, board games, going outside, picnics. Make it simple. Take the pressure off yourself. Because ultimately, in the end of the day, we thrive when it comes to social connection, being with the people we love, and can create beautiful, happy memories with those people. And happy memories are not necessarily, you know, I've got the right clothes on and the decorations and the house is clean. The happy memories are those moments where you are present, or you just here now connecting with the other person. It can be that, you know, cricket outside, you know, play cricket outside, or going for that walk outside, or having a conversation because all of a sudden you're not busy. It's not about how yummy your turkey is. It's sort of, you know, it could have been just that nice chat around, you know, with your grandmother over a bit of eggnog or something like that, you know, something really special. Something really special.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tabitha. That was honestly such an amazing episode, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. That was awesome, and I'm sure our listeners will too. But I just want to, you know, say as well that we've talked about some very heavy themes, some very triggering themes. So if you need support, please call Lifeline on 13 11 14. And if we're your EAP, your workplace wellbeing provider, please book an appointment with Converge via our website or your app. And to find out, just go and speak to your HR department and find out. And even if we're not your EAP, just please reach out to whatever support system you have available. Again, thank you so much, Tabitha.
Yeah,
And thank you to everyone listening. And I'll see you again in the new year very soon for our next episode of Thrive.